So I had a very timely question the other day about how to keep your sensor clean. And the reason this was timely is because I noticed some spots on one of my own camera sensors and it was due for a cleaning. So I thought we'd go through that together. Thanks, Mod, for the reminder. If you have any other questions that you'd like to see answered on the channel, please let me know and I'd be happy to consider those. So when it comes to sensor cleaning, we're going to kind of take this through the escalation of steps, starting with prevention. And the reason prevention is so important is because no one wants to have to deal with a dirty sensor. If you have spots on your sensor when you're recording images, you're going to either have to spend time in processing, removing those spots, or if you don't, just accept that you have spots on your picture. So prevention is really important, and it starts with proper lens changing procedures. Most of us have mirrorless cameras now, and mirrorless cameras, the sensor is exposed to the air when the lens is off. So everything that's in the air could potentially attach itself to the sensor, and that's going to show up in your images. And one thing that I see a lot of people do is they will go to change lenses and they will take their old lens off of their camera and then just leave the camera sitting there without anything covering the sensor for a few minutes while they look for a new lens or they're talking to somebody else. And that whole time, anything that's in the air is finding its way into that camera housing and onto the sensor. So be sure to minimize the amount of time that that sensor is exposed. You want to get your new lens ready. Take the rear cap off of that lens, put it down on a hard, clean surface so that rear element is protected from dust and anything else. Then take the other lens off of your camera body or take the body cap off. And as soon as you do that, put the new lens onto the camera. Make sure that you know how to mate those properly. Make sure that the dots are going to line up so that you don't spend too much time trying to get those things attached. Having good discipline like this can prevent a lot of dust from falling on your sensor. And try to do this in a as clean an environment as you can. Okay, so maybe the beach on a really windy day or in the desert on a really windy day. Not the best idea to be doing that out in the open. You should also periodically look at your lens rear element. So the rear element is the one that's right next to the sensor. If that has anything on it, that could fall off of the rear element and land on the camera sensor. So be sure you're cleaning that every now and then also. You also want to take advantage of your camera's sensor cleaning feature. Most cameras have this, not all, but this is going to shake that sensor really, really fast and hopefully shake off anything that is attached to the sensor. Most cameras, you can do this manually anytime you want if you notice something on the sensor. And most cameras also have a way for you to set up an automatic cleaning, either when the camera is turned on, when the camera is turned off, or both. I prefer to have the automatic sensor cleaning enabled when I turn the camera on. This way, when the camera was off, if anything that was inside the camera body landed on the sensor and I'm about to pick up the camera to start taking pictures, I turn it on, it'll shake anything loose that might be on the sensor. That is going to delay the startup time ever so slightly. I mean, it's not a ton of time, but just be aware of that. But for me, I think that's the best time to clean that sensor. Even if you have really good lens changing discipline and you're using your camera's sensor cleaning feature, you might still have something stuck on your sensor. In this case, you can try using a puff of air to knock that off. Now, what you don't want to do is use a can of compressed air, like for cleaning electronics. This air comes out at a really fast rate of speed, a lot of force, and most of them use a liquid propellant. And that can leave a film on your sensor that's going to require even more cleaning. So instead, you should use one of these little pocket blowers, these little bulbs, like a rocket blower. You just squeeze that bulb and it's going to shoot out a little puff of air. And when you're doing this, hold the camera upside down so that anything that's knocked off of that sensor will fall down to the ground instead of back onto the sensor. Put the tip of that blower just inside the lens mount. You don't want it too close. You don't want to actually touch the sensor. and then just give it a few puffs. Take a look at that sensor to see if there's anything still stuck on there. Give it a few puffs again and see if you can knock that off. If that still hasn't totally cleaned your sensor, now it's time where we actually are going to have to touch the sensor. And I know this can be the scary part for a lot of people. I've done this a lot of times. I've never damaged any of my sensors. If you are afraid of this, then you may just want to take it in for a professional cleaning. However, it's something that I think most photographers can confidently do. I do just want to make a disclaimer that I am not liable for any damage that you have to your camera after we walk through this. You want to make sure that you're using tools that are specifically designed for sensor cleaning. You don't want to use any kind of pre-moistened lens wipes. Those can leave a film and fibers on your sensor. You don't want to use microfiber cloths. Those can damage your sensor. What you do want to do is either invest in a reusable sensor cleaning brush or buy disposable sensor cleaning swabs. The brushes, I don't really like using these too much just because they are reusable. If you do use them, you have to really make sure that they're clean, brush off whatever might be attached to the sensor, and then use air again to loosen anything that that brush may have loosened. I do like the reusable swabs a little bit more just because they're a little more sterile. They remind me more of like, surgical tools. When you do buy these, you want to make sure that you're using the right size. So if you have an APS-C size sensor, you want to get sensor cleaning swabs that are specifically designed for an APS-C camera. Same goes for full frame, micro four thirds, and so on. The size is important so that you are covering the entire sensor area, no more and no less. So before you do this, before you take the lens off of your camera or open up that sensor cleaning swab, make sure you're in as sterile an environment as you can be in. If you have any kind of HVAC systems on, a heater or a fan, turn those off because those are going to circulate dust that's in the air and that can fall on your sensor. So turn those off, close the windows, and just make sure you're in a clean environment. It doesn't have to be like lab quality clean, but try to minimize the chances of anything falling onto that sensor. Then you're going to take the lens off of your camera, open up the sensor swab. Don't touch the sensor swab. Open it up, pull it out by the handle, and then you're going to take the liquid that came with those sensor cleaning swabs and apply just a few drops on that swab. For smaller sensors like micro four thirds and APS-C, you may only need one drop per side. For larger sensors like full frame, you may need two or three drops per side. You just don't want to oversaturate it because that can leave streaks on the sensor. After you've put those drops on that swab, you want to put it on one end of the sensor, hold it at about a 45-degree angle, and then just in one fluid motion, drag it across the sensor. You don't need to press too hard, just a nice light touch. Drag it across the sensor. When you get to the other end, drag it in the opposite direction. So you may go from left to right with one edge of the swab and go right to left. At this point, it's time to see if that did the trick. So put the lens back on your camera, stop down to like f16 or f22, go to a small aperture, and then take a picture of a light solid object, like a light blue sky or a white ceiling or a white wall, and see if there are any spots in the picture. Now, how are you going to know if these spots are on your lens or on your sensor? Well, if you have a zoom lens, you can zoom in and out, see if those spots change position at all. You can go to a different lens and again, see if those spots are in different positions with a different lens. If those spots are in the same position, then it's most likely on your sensor. You can try that wet cleaning again, or if you don't want to do it again, you're just not comfortable, or it's a really stubborn speck, then you can take it in for a professional cleaning. Your local camera shop can do this for you. They have more tools, they are more experienced in doing this, or you can send it back into the manufacturer. But again, it all starts with prevention. Be disciplined about changing out your lenses. Use your camera's sensor cleaning feature if it has one. Use a pocket blower. Don't use compressed air, but use air to see if you can get those things off of the sensor without actually touching it. And if that doesn't work, something or someone is going to have to actually touch that sensor. If you don't want to do it, you're going to have to take it in for cleaning. If you have any other questions or comments or other techniques, please let us know. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more great tips like this every week, and we'll see you in the next video.